Hello everyone, this is Mr. Brain Junkie here, and today we're going to be talking about a science fiction film called Dark City. Be ready for some spoilers ahead. A man wakes up in a hotel, disoriented and not able to remember his past. He looks in the mirror only to find blood on his forehead, but he appears to be uninjured otherwise. The man walks out of the bathroom only to knock over a goldfish by accident. He immediately saves the animal by placing it in the bathtub. He finds a suitcase with the initial of KH and proceeds to examine the items inside. The man sees a postcard with the name Shell Beach on the background and begins recollecting fragments of his past. Suddenly, the phone rings beside him and a man named Dr. Schreber tells him urgently that the main character lost his memories because of a failed experiment. He must run quickly as there are people coming after him right now. The main character drops the phone in fear and sees the dead body of a woman with strange markings on her. He quickly runs out of the room, but sees a group of strange men in black suits exiting the elevator and going towards his room just like the doctor foretold. He runs to the lobby and notices that the clock appears to be stuck at 12 midnight. What's even more strange is that everyone in the building appears to be unconscious, like they fell asleep in the middle of what they were doing. The clock strikes and the people all magically resume their activities. The hotel manager calls the main character, Mr. Murdoch, and informs him to pick up his wallet at the automat. A beautiful woman with extraordinary eyebrows performs on stage. Her name is Emma, and she turns out to be Murdoch's wife. After her performance, she receives an invitation from Dr. Schreber, who claims to be an old friend of her husband's. We learn that apparently Emma cheated on her husband, which caused him to run off 3 weeks ago. The doctor tells Emma that her husband has lost his memory and may act unpredictably if they meet. He stresses for her to call him if Murdoch ever returns to her, as the doctor claims to be the only one able to fix her husband's afflictions. At the same time, Inspector Bumstead receives the murder case from the police station. They arrive at the hotel and looks at the dead body with confusion. Murdoch comes to the restaurant and the blonde woman tries seducing him with her hormones, but he didn't want any strange diseases and proceeds to go in without her. He sees his wallet behind one of the compartments, but it refuses to open. Surprisingly, Murdoch managed to break in by accidentally using his telekinetic abilities. Murdoch grabs the wallet and tries to leave, but gets stopped by the officers in the restaurant who questions him on where he's going. Luckily, the main character is saved by the blonde woman from earlier, while she scolds the officers for not hunting down the real killer in the city. They leave the restaurant, but the woman is not done with our main character yet as she leads him to her room. On the other side, the police continues to examine the crime scene, and Bumstead recalls that there are 5 murders of the same nature from before, all related to killings of prostitutes. What he found odd in this case was the fact that the killer apparently saved the goldfish after he broke its fish tank. He questions what kind of killer would save another animal. Detective Bumstead goes back to the police station, only to see Emma outside asking about her husband. He takes her in his office and questions her about the murders of the 6 women. After learning that the police are accusing her husband of sleeping with and murdering prostitutes, Emma rushes out in anger, refusing to cooperate with the inspector. At the same time, Murdoch waits on the woman's bed while she undresses and prepares to service the man with her female assets. He looks into his wallet and finds out that his name is ironically John, given the situation that he's in right now. Murdoch goes to the billboard advertising about Shell Beach and finds more evidence that suggests he may actually be the killer. The men in black suits catches up with Murdoch and tries to subdue him with their abilities, but finds it ineffective against the main character. Murdoch uses his telekinesis to drop one of the pursuers while the others attack him with knives. He nearly falls to his death, but manages to kill one of them by splicing the man's head open. He climbs up to the platform and shockingly sees a creature climbing out from the man's brain, which appears to die soon after making contact with the outside. The lights explode in the vicinity and the main character escapes at this opportunity. Underground deep in the city, a gathering of the strange men takes place and they're troubled by the main character's apparent ability to use their powers. We also learn that Dr. Schreber is working with them and they're responsible for Murdoch's amnesia as they try to implant memories into the main character. Their leader, Mr. Book, appears and tells his right-hand man, Mr. Hand, to capture Murdoch no matter the consequences. Inspector Bumstead brings Emma back to her home and apologizes for his questionings earlier. She goes into her apartment only to find that John is waiting in the living room. The woman is shocked when she sees her husband has actually lost his memories and he doesn't remember anything about his wife. John expresses the frustration of not knowing who he is and suspects that he may really be the serial killer after all. Emma disagrees as she strongly believes that John is innocent. He goes out of their apartment only to be ambushed by Detective Bumstead. John tries to explain the truth, but the officer fails to believe his outlandish tales and proceeds to chase after him. Murdoch gets trapped in a room with no exit, but surprisingly, he's able to conjure up a door and escape while the officer arrives only to find a dead end. Murdoch manages to find Dr. Schreber, only to see one of the men in black suits, Mr. Hand, scolding the doctor for failing to imprint John's memories. Schreber explains that Murdoch has somehow developed the ability to reject the implanting of new memories, which may be a natural process of human evolution. Mr. Hand wants the doctor to produce more of Murdoch's memories, but they will use it for a different purpose this time. The clock strikes again, and all the mysterious men gather in their sanctum and begins shutting off the city. As the clock reaches 12 midnight, everything stops and the people all become unconscious in the middle of their routines. Murdoch gets freaked out seeing how everything suddenly stopped and tries his best to wake up the people, but with no results. The man in black suits goes with Dr. Schreber and begins implanting different memories into different people while everyone is unconscious. The city itself also begins to change accordingly, as a result of being manipulated by the men in black suits, matching the new memories that are implanted into the people. Murdoch catches the doctor when he's alone and questions him about what is really happening, but the doctor tells him that it's not safe to talk here. Murdoch gets angry and uses the power by accident, which sends the doctor flying. Seeing John use his ability, the doctor is overjoyed and tells him that they need to work together in order to take the city back from the mysterious man. Before they can finish their conversation, John runs away quickly as the men in black suits arrive. With a last attempt to capture the main character, they inject the memories meant for John into Mr. Hand so that he may sympathize with what John is supposed to be thinking in order to predict where he's likely to be next. Meanwhile, John begins piecing the clues together from the pictures of the postcard and the initials on his suitcase, which suggests that he has an uncle named Carl Harris. He manages to find the man's address from the phone book and decides to head for Shell Beach as his memory tells him that that is where he's from. John goes on the subway, but no matter what he does, the trains do not go to the beach and stops one station before it. With the insights of Murdoch's memories, Mr. Hand visits the blonde woman and interrogates her about John's whereabouts. Although they did not find any useful information from the woman, he begins feeling John's emotions and understands that Emma is the key to finding the main character. His memories have also changed him as he becomes a sadistic killer and plans to torture the woman before killing her. With no other clues, John goes to the address of his uncle and meets a man in a wheelchair pointing a gun at him. The man soon recognizes John as his nephew and begins showing him their past photos together while John was a little kid. These pictures show John on the Shell Beach with his parents, but when he inquires about the exact locations and how to get there, the uncle cannot seem to remember. What's even more weird is that John sees a big scar on these childhood photos of himself, but it doesn't exist on his current body, suggesting that all these past events are lies. At the same time, Emma traced her husband's whereabouts and eventually locates the blonde woman's apartment. She sneaks inside, only to find the woman horribly disfigured and killed. She runs outside in fear and gets stopped by Inspector Bumstead, who's following her to catch John. Emma goes home only to receive a phone call from John's uncle, who tells her that her husband is here but acting very strangely. She quickly goes with Bumstead towards John's location, but this information is also revealed to Mr. Hand, who was listening from outside their window. John catches his uncle talking with Emma and realizes that his location is compromised. The men in black suits quickly arrive at John's location, and the main character has no choice but to run immediately. The building begins changing again as it approaches midnight, and John makes it outside only to see that the city is morphing chaotically. He tries to escape, but runs into Mr. Hand, who stops him promptly. John gains the advantage in their fight, but the man tells him that there is nowhere for John to hide as they have his memories. John demands to know what they are, to which the man says that they use dead humans as vessels. They are separated by the growing buildings, and John continues to run away from his pursuers. John nearly falls to his death, but manages to save himself by climbing onto a rising structure. He eventually makes it to the ground, but gets surrounded by the men in black suits. Luckily, Emma arrives with Bunstead and they rescue John just in time before he can be captured. The inspector brings him back to the police station and interrogates John about the murders, but the main character claims to be in the dark just like everyone else. John suspects that something is very wrong with their reality and questions Bumstead about when he last remembers seeing sunlight in the city. Murdoch states that he's been awake this whole time through multiple midnights but never saw the sun rise even once. He further demonstrates his weird situation by showing his power to lift objects with his mind. The men in black suits arrive at the police station and begins putting everyone to sleep while looking for Murdoch. The inspector questions himself even more as he looks through the conflicting evidences. He decides to take the keys and free Murdoch in order to learn the truth. John finds Dr. Shepard in the swimming room and demands that he tells the truth. The doctor tells John that he's not crazy, nor is he a murderer, but points a gun at him as they don't have time for explanations. He shows John a syringe that he created, which he claims to have all the answers. He needs John to inject it right away, as it's the only way to save everyone from the men in black suits. Bumstead points his gun at the doctor, and John takes the syringe. They force Shepard to take them to Shell Beach, as they believe that it will lead them to the truth. The doctor claims that going there won't lead them to anything, as he's been there himself already. Meanwhile, Emma goes home only to find all the furniture's missing, and Mr. Han waiting for her in the apartment. He takes her hostage and plans to use her against Murdoch. The three men gets on a boat as they travel closer to their destination. The doctor begins explaining that this whole place is an experiment in order for the men in black suits to find the human soul, as they imprint different memories to different people. Everyone here was abducted for this purpose alone, and everything they remember about their past is fabricated. The strange men are actually a different species from another world, and their race is dying because they lack individuality. They want to understand what makes humans different in order to save themselves from extinction. The aliens are able to manipulate the city with their telekinetic powers, and somehow John has acquired it as well after many rounds of imprints. The inspector wonders where they're really from, but the doctor says that no one really knows as they all lost their memories. They get off the boat and walks inside a tunnel until they eventually reach the end. However, there's nothing here except for the same billboard that John saw in the beginning about the beach. They refuse to give up and begins hammering at the wall with sledgehammers while the doctor screams for them to stop. John breaks through the barrier with his powers, and to their shock, there's nothing but space and distant stars outside the city. The aliens arrive holding Emma hostage. Bumstead begins shooting at them, but gets overpowered by one of the aliens and falls out of the walls. He floats into space, and before he dies, he sees the entirety of the city as part of a gigantic spaceship. Mr. Han threatens John with Emma's life if he doesn't surrender, and puts him to sleep when he lowers his guard. John wakes up being tied to a medical stand, and they confirm from John's fingerprints that he did in fact evolve into a creature that's similar to the aliens. With this in mind, they no longer need the other test subjects as they plan to inject their collective memories into John, believing that it would cure their race from extinction. The doctor walks towards John and quietly takes the syringe that John kept in his pocket. He tells John that the pain would only last a moment and injects the memories into him. John begins seeing Dr. Shepard in his memories repeatedly as the man teaches him how to use his powers and everything there is to know about the aliens. Mr. Book realizes that something is wrong, but it was too late, as John regains consciousness with the mastery of his powers and breaks free from the restraints easily. He creates a shockwave that sends the aliens flying towards the distance. Mr. Book retaliates against John and throws him away with a blast of his own. John recovers quickly, and the alien continues to attack him with a barrage of waves, killing his own kind in the process. The main character fights back as well, and they're locked into an energy clash which grows larger as they each put in more and more power. The beams cause a large explosion which destroys nearly everything around them. The two begins flying towards the surface of the city as all the buildings begin to disintegrate into pieces. Mr. Book throws a knife at John, but the main character catches it with his mind and deflects it right back, stabbing the alien in the chest and sends him flying towards a building. Mr. Book crashes and explodes on impact. The alien creature tries to escape the body, but dies immediately as it makes contact with the outside. He flies towards the doctor, who also managed to survive. Shepard tells John that he can now use their machine to reconstruct the city in any way he wants, as he has their power. The doctor tells the main character that unfortunately, Emma's memories were wiped out before all this happened and she no longer remembers him. John concentrates and expels all the water from the city into the exterior, creating an ocean outside the walls. He also constructs Shell Beach from his memory inside the waters. He turns the entire city towards the star, finally allowing daylight to exist in this world. John opens the final door to the outside and sees Emma standing at the end of the walkway, admiring the views on top of the ocean. He walks towards her and they both express the beauty of the scenery in front of them. John wonders if Emma knows where the Shell Beach is, and she points to the land that John just created. They both walk towards the beach that now truly exists, while introducing themselves for the last time, as their memories will forever be their own. So what do you guys think about this movie? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like my video, please press like and subscribe for more. I'll see you guys next time.